Alrighty, welcome everyone to the NNP Symposium, if this is the first presentation that you are attending. Eric, you can go ahead and turn on your camera and audio again. If you go up to the top of your screen, that same little bar should pop down where you can turn them back on. For everyone joining us, this will be Eric Hodge talking about UK merchant countermarked dollars. So Eric has been a collector for about 20 to 25 years and has been specializing in this area for around 10 to 15. So he's very experienced in the field and should have plenty of new information for us. We'll be learning about Spanish-American 8 reales that were counterstamped by UK merchants in the 17 to 1800s and why that was. So I will let you take it away, Eric. Audience members, if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the Q&A and we will get around to them at the end. And Eric, if you have any questions or need anything, just say the word and I will hop back on to assist.
Thank you, Liana. Hello. Before I start, I would like to acknowledge the late, great Eric Newman, without whom none of this would have been possible. Len Augsburger, who leads from the front, and Liana Spurrier and others who have guided and assisted at all times. My presentation is entitled UK Merchant Countermarked Dollars. What are these? Why did they arise? How can one learn more about them? Well, I hope to answer these questions. These numismatic items are in fact tokens, as they were never officially issued by the Royal Mint or authorised by the UK government. The large majority of those considered genuine issues are countermarked on the obverse of Spanish-American 8 reals. For those not familiar with 8 reals, here is an example. This portrait is of the Spanish King Charles IV and is dated 1795. The reverse tells us that it is an 8 reals, 8R, and that it was minted in Mexico City, MO. The Spanish generally abbreviate their words by using the first and last letters, so M and O for Mexico. The letters FM are the first names of the assayers, those responsible for the quality of the silver in the coin, and are believed to represent Francisco Arranz Cobos and Mariano Rodriguez. There is also much iconography on these coins referring to Spanish history. There are castles, there are lions, there is a pomegranate, pillars, the words plus, ultra, each worthy of further investigation. Here we have an 8 reals that is countermarked with a business name in the outer ring, in this case, payable at Lanark Mills, and a value in the centre, 5 shillings. The values are always in pre-decimal currency of shillings and pennies. There were 12 pennies in a shilling and 20 shillings in a pound sterling. Today we still use the pound sterling, though now it is divided into 100 pence. So that is what these countermarks are, but why did they arise? These tokens were only issued for a period of approximately 50 years, from about 1780 to 1830. In 1601, just towards the end of the reign of Elizabeth I, an edict was issued that stipulated the quantity of silver that was to be present in each silver coin denomination. These silver coins were expected to possess their intrinsic value, and this edict was to ensure this would be the case. It set the value of silver at 5 shillings and twopence a troy ounce. A crown coin of 5 shillings would therefore be made of twice as much silver as a half crown of 2 shillings and sixpence. What this also did was set the upper limit at which the Royal Mint could purchase silver, so as to enable it to make a profit on the production of coin. If the market price of silver fell, then the mint made good profit. But if it rose above 5 and twopence a troy ounce, then a loss would be incurred. This regulation worked well for about 150 years, until around 1750, when the market price of silver began to rise above 5 and twopence a troy ounce. This graph shows, with the red arrow, the value of an 8 reals when the price of silver was 5 and twopence a troy ounce. Any price above this would not allow the Royal Mint to produce coins and continue to make a profit. The blue line on the graph is the highest price for silver in any given year from the years 1790 to 1827. The pink line is the lowest annual price. It is the blue line that is important here because it is above the 5 and twopence benchmark every year until 1820, except for one blip in 1798. This 1798 blip is interesting because it was the reason for the issue of an extremely rare 1798 Dorian Magan shilling. A group of bankers decided to take advantage of the fall in silver price and get some silver made into coinage. However, before the coinage could be distributed, the government intervened and put a stop to this unexpected activity, arguing that an issue of new coin at the old standard would be unwise while the Privy Council Committee on Coin was considering the future of the currency. An act was passed which formally closed the mint to the coinage of silver, and all that remained of the unhappy episode were a few shillings which somehow escaped the melting pot. This incident clearly illustrates just how confusing the silver monetary system in Great Britain was at this time. It was during this period of 1790 to 1820 that the countermarked 8 reals came into their own, as long as they were countermarked above the value of the silver content to prevent melting of the coin for the silver. What caused this rise in the cost of silver? It was not a shortage of silver. There were huge quantities of silver being mined by the Spanish in Mexico City, Potosi in Bolivia, and Lima in Peru. The price rise was mainly due to the high demand in Britain and the rest of Europe to pay soldiers, including foreign mercenaries, in wars in America and Europe, predominantly the Napoleonic Wars. What to do? The British government had two main options. One, alter the edict of 1601, putting less silver in each silver coin, or two, do nothing. They chose the second option and did nothing. Well, not quite nothing, because as today, they had plenty of committees, as mentioned above, and agencies looking at the problem and reporting back. But in effect, nothing was done. The Royal Mint, however, took action. Not being able to make a profit, they ceased the production of silver coins. Virtually no silver coinage, other than odd small issues to the banks for Christmas gifts to the best customers, was made between 1750 and 1816. Gold coinage continued to be struck in sufficient quantities to meet the demand for large sums. Copper coins and tokens, mostly unofficial and lightweight, were available in huge quantities. But these were not very helpful to industrialists who had to provide weekly pay packets, nor to tradesmen attempting to give change for gold coins. So not only was small change not being produced, but this coincided with that enormous expansion of industrial wealth referred to as the Industrial Revolution. New factories were springing up, demanding labour, and that labour expected to be paid. But there was very little coinage available to pay them. So the factory shop came into play. Why? Because in most cases, there was no other viable option. In certain cases, payment was made by IOUs, but these could not be spent just anywhere. And if they were accepted, it was usually only at a discount. The majority of the large employers were in the countryside, making use of fast-flowing streams and rivers to drive their machinery. It was these employers who suffered the most, far from banks to obtain what coinage there was, and far from shops and other facilities for the employees. The factories were forced to provide these facilities themselves and ended up paying their workers in truck, i.e. in kind, using food, clothing, and lodging as payment. There were, however, some employers that I would refer to as the philanthropic, far-seeing and caring ones, who decided to value their workforce and provide them with a better payment option. We have already mentioned the Spanish Empire's production of silver. Well, most of this silver was converted into coinage on the spot, mainly at the mints of Mexico City, Potosi, and Lima. This coinage was a worldwide coinage for over 250 years. It was used in many countries and countermarked in many others. The main silver coin was the 8 reals, often referred to as a Spanish dollar, similar to a crown or 5-shilling piece in Britain. This similarity perhaps helped with the acceptance in trade of the countermarked 8 reals. Spanish-American 8 reals were available in Britain on the London bullion market. The better employers, therefore, were able to purchase these in quantity, either directly or through their bank, and countermark them with their name and a value, using them to pay their workers. This was a risk to the employer, as he bore the cost if silver fell in price. But many businesses considered the risk worth taking. Production of one's own currency benefited both the employer and the employee. One could either tie the workers to one's own shop, or conversely, give additional benefits to the employee who used the works facilities. The countermarked dollars did both. They had their own intrinsic value in the silver, and also a higher value marked on them for use at the works, or as commonly became standard in the surrounding community that survived from and supported local business. The local businesses would accumulate countermarked dollars and return them to the factories for reissue in exchange for gold. Other issuers of these tokens, apart from industrial concerns, were grocers, other merchant traders, and some banking concerns. The merchant traders would, of course, benefit greatly from their ability to give their countermarked dollars as change for gold, so ensuring continued future trade. To avoid the unauthorized withdrawal and melting of countermarked tokens, their marked valuations obviously had to be higher than their bullion value, but not so high as to invite extensive counterfeiting with false punches. To prevent counterfeiting, many issuers resorted to privy marks on the coins to allow easy identification of genuine issues. That is, secret marks on the tokens that were only known to the issuer, and so could highlight forgery or fraudulent use of dies. Problems for the issuers arose when the market price fluctuated by more than a few pence. A drop would bring on a flood of demands for redemption of tokens at their countermarked value. A significant rise would mean the countermarked tokens could be sold more profitably back into the bullion market. In either case, the issuer would not want to reissue redeemed tokens at their original countermarked valuation. Solutions including melting, cancellation, and repunching a revised value on the coin. These actions would, of course, help to explain the rarity of some issues. Here we see an example of 5 shillings punched over 4 and 9, a previous mark. Where were these countermarked dollars utilized? As mentioned earlier, they were often issued by businesses that employed many people at the start of the Industrial Revolution. Due to the need for power to drive the factory machines, many of these businesses were in the countryside, close to fast-flowing water to turn water wheels to generate that power. This map shows the location of the businesses in England, Wales, and Ireland that are known to have issued countermarked dollars. As can be seen, there were very few issuers here. The majority of issuers were in Scotland, near Glasgow, which is at the top of this photo, and which can be seen in more detail on the next map. This map shows the proliferation of issuers in Scotland, mostly around the Glasgow area, which is there. Why Glasgow? Well, there is no definitive answer to that other than Glasgow, being a port facing west and America, was very busy and trade was lucrative. Yet it was a long way from London that controlled the issue of any currency that was produced. Also, there were many wealthy merchants living in Glasgow who had made their fortunes in tobacco from America. As tobacco imports reduced due to the wars in America, these merchants turned their skills and money to the cotton trade. However, the cotton mills near Glasgow were slow at taking advantage of the new Boulton and Watt steam engines that were used in large industrial conurbations in England as a source of power over water. So the large cotton mills in England, mainly Manchester, were situated in the towns that were also able to provide financial facilities to the businesses and their employees. As we have all heard many times before, the maxim is buy the book before the coin. In the context of this series, there are 3 main books that should be consulted. The first is in German, published in 1897, written by Julius Mailey, who was a Swiss diplomat, spending many years living in Brazil. There are 25 main types of countermarked dollars mentioned, and 37 photographed examples in this book. The second book is the 19th Century Token Coinage by W.J. Davis and published in 1904. This lists 33 main types with about 22 illustrated. The third book is currently the Bible for this series and was written by one of your own, Harrington E. Manville from Washington, D.C. Published by Spink in London in 2001 and winner of the 2002 Book Prize of the International Association of Professional Numismatists. This book lists not only every main type and variety known at the time, but also gives the social and economic background of each issuer's town when available, to place in context the need for and use of these tokens. This information is provided along with a discussion of each type of token and a corpus of all recorded tokens known at that time to give a reasonably accurate estimate of the numbers known. This book is truly a tour de force, especially when it is borne in mind that the details in it were collated over many years on a card index before computers and sort programs were available to assist. So what quantity of countermarked dollars and their issuers are we looking at for the researcher and collector? The current statistics for these issues are believed as follows. Main types, 76, with 6 believed false. Varieties within the main types, 157, with 40 believed false. Number of known coin examples, including false, with photographic proof, 1,146. Of these 1,146, 515 are held in museums or other depositories, leaving 631 coin examples for collectors. So now we have a little background knowledge for these issues. Let us look at examples in more detail, which highlight some of the ideas mentioned above. The most numerous type is the payable at Lanark Mills countermark. Within this type, there are 6 main varieties. The most common is the 5 shillings, where there are 112 known, with 39 in museums, leaving 73 for collectors. The relevant numbers for the other varieties are shown at the base of each photo in this slide. The varieties are interesting because they display what are believed to be possible privy marks, that is, marks made by the issuer to help them ascertain that the countermark coins being returned to them were their own genuine issues. Let us look at them in detail. The first is issued at 5 shillings, and between the mills and payable, highlighted in orange, is a lozenge stop. All considered genuine 5 shilling issues have this stop. The second variety is issued at 4 and 9, and it also has the lozenge stop, highlighted in orange. The third variety, issued at 4 and 6, has a star stop, highlighted in orange, with an extra countermark in the shape of a D with an X in the middle, highlighted in green. The fourth variety, also issued at 4 and 6, but this has a lozenge stop, highlighted in orange, and also with an extra countermark in the shape of a D with an X in the middle, highlighted in green. The fifth variety, issued 2 and 6, has the star stop, highlighted in orange, with an extra countermark in the shape of a D with an X in the middle, highlighted in green. The sixth variety, issued at 2 and 6, also has the star stop, highlighted in orange, but this time no other countermark. Now, all that may seem a bit confusing, but perhaps that was what it was designed to do. Make the recipient and any possible counterfeiter unsure what all the variations meant. It is only when we can see all the examples together that it is possible to work out some sort of system, not only to confound counterfeiters, but to possibly differentiate different issue periods for the same countermark value. It has to be remembered that these countermarked issues spanned a period of about 50 years, with the Lanark Mills issues believed to cover the period from, say, the 1790s to 1820. a span of 30 years. This assumed period of issue for all types from Lanark Mills is constructed based on prevailing prices of silver and host coin dates. From this graph, based upon the previous one seen earlier, we can see the maximum and minimum purchase price for an 8 reals on the London bullion market for each year from 1790 to 1827. The dark blue line on the graph is the highest price for silver in any given year. The pink line is the lowest annual price in any given year. It is the dark blue line that is important because it is above the 5 and twopence benchmark shown by the red arrow and yellow line every year until 1820, except for that previously mentioned blip in 1798. It was during this period of 1790 to 1820 that the countermarked 8 reals came into their own. As long as they were countermarked above the value of the silver content to prevent melting of the coin of silver. This graph also highlights the period when various countermarked values would have been effective. Starting at the bottom, the turquoise value is for 4 and 6. The purple value for 4 and 9. The brown for 5 shillings or 60 pence. The green for 5 and 6 or 66 pence. And the light blue at the top for 6 shillings or 72 pence. It is then possible to suggest periods when certain countermarked values could have been issued. If we take, for example, the purple line at 4 and 9, its issue would have been reasonable at any time where this purple line is above the dark blue line. Highest annual price line for silver. This covers the years 1790 to 1799, 1807 to 1808, 1816 to 1818, and after 1820. If this information is then linked with the latest host coin dates, it gives us a terminus post quem, or latest possible date of countermarking, which in the case of Lanark Mills is a 5 shilling host dated 1819. From these extrapolations, it can be envisaged that there is still a lot of research work to do in dating all sorts of countermarked issues. Add to these calculations overpunching of different values or by different issuers, then it is possible to construct fairly reasonable periods of issue. The more examples there are to study, then of course the more accurate the results. The second example worth study is the English countermark of Cromford, Derbyshire. There were 2 issues, one at 4 and 9 and one at 5 shillings. We know that at least some of the 5 shilling marks were issued after the 4 and 9 because we have examples of overpunching where the 4 and 9 mark is clearly seen below the more recent 5 shilling countermark. The cotton mills at Cromford in Derbyshire in central England were owned by Sir Richard Arkwright, who was an influential figure in the development of the English cotton spinning industry. Born to poor parents in Preston, Lancashire, Arkwright developed and improved James Hargreaves' spinning jenny, which for the first time had enabled one operator to control multiple spindles by inventing the roller spinning frame, which allowed many more threads to be spun with a certain degree of firmness, thereby allowing the production of all cotton cloth. Previously, the cotton had had to be mixed with linen to avoid the threads breaking. Patents were taken out in 1769 and 1775. Arkwright's first mill was at Nottingham and was worked by horses. Eventually, a larger mill with a water wheel was built at Cromford. Sir Richard Arkwright's later years were taken up by lawsuits, and eventually all his patents were overturned, as it was believed that his ideas were those of John Wyatt in 1738. Whoever produced the ideas, there is no doubt that it was Arkwright's business acumen that pushed the technology forward, giving an enormous boost to the Industrial Revolution. Eventually, Sir Richard, who died in 1792, was succeeded by his son, also Richard, and it is to the son that can be ascribed the countermarked tokens, as a number are on coins dated after the death of the father. Not only did the Arkwrights build a mill at Cromford, but they also built the town to accommodate their workers. The son was especially keen on enhancing the working and living conditions of his staff and greatly improved the heating and ventilations in his mills. As we have seen, the surviving countermarks are of two valuations, of 4 and 9, of which about 60 are known, with 26 in museums, and 5 shillings, which are known on 15 coins, with 6 in museums. More than half the 4 and 9 host coins are dated before 1800, and all of them before 1811, suggesting an issue period from about 1790 to 1810, after which the bullion price of dollars generally remained at or above 5 shillings until mid-1815. Of the 5 shilling issues, there are at least 6 where the 5 shilling punch is believed to be over 4 and 9, indicating a sensible reuse of coins, and showing that at least some of the 5 shillings came after the 4 and 9s. It is likely that the 5 shilling issues were prepared about 1811 to 1815. For our next example, we return to Scotland, to the Rothesay cotton mills. Rothesay lies about 40 miles southwest of Glasgow, at the head of a bay on the island of Bute. An English engineer, James Kenyon of Sheffield, moved to Scotland to evade Richard Arkwright's patent on his water frame. In 1779, he not only opened his new mill, but employed ex-Arkwright employees that he had lured away with him. In 1785, Kenyon sold the works to David Dale, who also helped to found Lanark Mills, and he expanded the operation before again placing it on the market 5 years later. By 1815, the works were owned by William Kelly and Robert Tom. Kelly had been David Dale's manager at Lanark Mills and carried on the labour relations systems he had learnt from there. The dollars were marked in 2 denominations of 5 shillings and 4 and 6 as seen here. The obverse 4 and 6 countermark reads Rothesay Cotton Works, 4 and 6, 1820. This date would suggest that 1820 was the date of issue, though there are a couple of host coins dated 1821, which perhaps indicate an issue period spanning a few years. There are 49 known genuine examples, with 13 in museums. The 4 and 6 values are found in 2 distinct forms. One believed genuine has a small privy punch mark below the shield, which you can see on all 4 examples here. And the other, without this mark, is believed to be a more modern forgery. Approximately 49 coins of the 4 and 6 are known with the privy mark, but only about 7 without this mark. It is also worth pointing out here another sideline interest, and that is the varying Spanish mint marks. Here we see examples from New Guatemala, Chihuahua, Zacatecas, and Mexico City. This issue from Rothesay is late in the countermarking series, and so the coins used are often from revolutionary mints set up during the period of the independence wars from Spain. The Rothschild tokens are quite varied, and unusually, this was the only concern that Countermarked cut Spanish dollars to the value of 2 and 6, 2 and 4, and 1 and 8. As mentioned before, there were 12 pennies in a shilling. So a crown, or 5 shillings, was worth 60 pence. 1/3 of a crown was therefore worth 20 pence, or 1 shilling and 8 pence. The numbers shown in brackets are first the number known, and second, those in museums. Certainly, the 2 and 6 and 1 and 8 marks would seem to have been issued when dollar prices were close to 5 shillings. But due to the cutting process, these segments have slightly less silver than 1/2 or 1/3 of a Spanish dollar. As no doubt you are now aware, there is much interest and research available in this area of numismatics. With time now limited here, briefly are some further examples of UK countermarked dollars. Again, the numbers shown on the slides are on the left, the number known, and on the right, the number in museums. The first, left, is issued by Blantyre Works at 5 shillings. This was a cotton spinning factory southeast of Glasgow and is still there today as a museum. Its claim to fame is that the African explorer and missionary David Livingstone was not only born in Blantyre, but worked at this factory from age 10 to about 19. The second issue on the right is from the Katrine Cotton Works. Katrine issued values of 6 and 6, 5 and 6, 5 shillings in oval, 5 shillings in round, and 4 and 9. The 5 and 6 values are only known over 4 and 9, and that is the case with the examples seen here. The special interest with these issues is that all known issues are numbered, in this case with number 1811 highlighted in red. Obviously, some form of issue control was being exercised at the mill. The two examples seen here are the obverse and reverse from the Thistle Bank, founded in 1761. The Thistle Bank issues were for values 6 shillings, 5 shillings, and 4 and 9. There were 2 issues at 4 and 9, one without a reverse thistle and one with, as seen here. The interesting fact is that all the 4 and 9 reverse thistles point their tops at the 9 o'clock position, and there are 56 known examples. All the 5 shillings and 6 shillings issues have reverse thistles with their heads to the 12 o'clock position. This example on this photo are the obverse and reverse of the issue from Robert Crichton, a grocer of Port Glasgow. The interesting fact with this issue is first that it is the only issue of the series which is marked in Qs. And secondly, all examples have a rope-like mark punched on the upper reverse just above the crown, highlighted in red. No doubt some sort of secret control or privy mark made by the issuer. So far in this presentation, all the UK countermarked dollars studied have been on 8 reals. There is, however, one issue that is considered a valid type in this series that is not on 8 reals. This mark is payable at DL Farm, pronounced DL though spelt Dalzell. The DL Farm tokens are the only early 19th century tradesman's countermarked dollars issued by a private person unconnected with a commercial enterprise. Further to this statement is the fact that this is the only issue where none of the host coins are on dollars, but are all on French 5 franc host coins. The background and reason for this issue have been researched, and it is believed all the host coins were brought back to Scotland by Archibald James Hamilton after seeing service in Portugal, Spain and France as a lieutenant in the 4th Dragoons, mounted soldiers, during the Peninsular War, and latterly with the Royal Scots Greys at Waterloo in Belgium in 1815. On his return to Scotland, Hamilton is known to have met David Dale, he of Lanark Mills fame, and it is perhaps from Dale that he got the idea for countermarking. In Belgium, Hamilton had seen how fruit orchards were managed and decided to follow these practices on his estate, and so employed large numbers of workers to dig ditches and plant trees. Maybe the countermark 5 francs were used to pay these workers. Certainly, many of these countermark hosts were retained by the Hamilton family long after the countermarking period was over. There are 27 examples of this countermark known, with photographic proof, from Lan 5, which was 1796 to 7, to 1813, and all are on French 5 francs, 6 being from the Republican era, the other 21 from the Napoleonic period. In each case, the countermark is placed on the reverse around the 5 of 5 francs, leading one to believe that the coins were issued for value 5 shillings. 9 of these host coins are dated under the revolutionary system of dating, such as this one, decreed on the 5th of October 1793, to start from the autumnal equinox 1792, running the year from the 22nd of September 1792 to the 21st of September 1793, and so on. The system was terminated from the 1st of January 1806. Of further interest about this revolutionary calendar is that there were only 3 weeks in a month, with 10 days in each week. It is interesting to speculate as to where and exactly when Archibald James Hamilton acquired his store of 5 francs. Of the 27 noted, the split of mints is as follows: 14 to Paris, A, 3 to Bordeaux, K, 2 each to Bayonne, L, Perpignan, Q, and Rouen, B, and Toulouse, M, as seen here, and 1 to Limoges, I, and 1 to Utrecht in Holland, which was treated as part of France from late 1810 and minted French 5 francs in 1812 and 1813. It was on the 1st of January 1809 that Napoleon declared the French Republic, which is shown République Française on the left, to be the French Empire, Empire Français, as shown here on the right. The Hamilton of DL Farm family papers have been deposited with Motherwell Heritage Centre near Glasgow, and it is from these that we can be fairly certain that Hamilton visited all the mint towns mentioned above. France had been in turmoil for a number of years, certainly since the start of the Peninsular War. Travel would have been difficult and dangerous. Trade would have been near impossible. Locally minted coinage would most likely have been used locally. So it is certainly fair to assume that Hamilton would have picked up his host coins as he visited the towns and local areas. Our final example is from the only issue known from what is now the Republic of Ireland, which can be seen on this map, located in Southern Ireland, about 11 miles north of Kilkenny, its county town. This countermark reads, payable at Castle Coma Colliery in a serrated oval, and is valued at 5 shillings and 5 pence on a lined field within a tulip oval border. Until 1826, there was a disparity between Irish and English exchange rates, such that 5 shillings and 5 pence Irish was equivalent of 5 shillings sterling. There were coal fields near Castlecomber, and early in the 19th century, these were in the hands of the Dowager Countess of Ormond, an inheritance from her father. The Dowager leased the operations of the coal mines to entrepreneurs who gathered their own teams to work the mines. It is not quite clear whether these tokens were used to pay the workers or if they were used by the Dowager to purchase coal and local supplies and thereby promote her coal trade. There are records of at least 5 different types of counterfeits for this issue, and one is shown on the right of this photo. The main difference is the open D above the 5 of pence, highlighted in red, and can be compared to the more closed D of the genuine issue on the left. This counterfeit issue has been known since at least 1920. The false puncheon for this mark was discovered by A.H. Baldwin and Sons, the London coin dealers and auctioneers, in about 1980, and was presented to the Royal Mint collection. The other counterfeit issues are so poor that they are not worth considering here. There are photographic records of 24 examples of the genuine issue dated from 1779 to 1806, with 20 of these hosts being dated from 1797 to 1806. 7 of these dated 1804. This would imply an issue period of the mid-1800s to about 1806. It is at the end of this presentation that I ask myself, am I a numismatist with an interest in social history, or am I a social historian with an interest in numismatics? I believe I started out as the former, and now I am more inclined to be the latter. What is important is the fact that it was numismatics that led me along this path. It was numismatics that gave me the initial spark to research an unusual countermark on a coin I knew very little about. The path has been both exciting and exhilarating, and on the way I have learnt so much about British and Spanish social history of the time, and also of the Spanish-American Empire, how it was formed, how it operated, and ultimately how it met its demise. There is still so much research to do that the rarity of the coins themselves is of secondary importance to the seeking of information. It is a dream subject for the economic and social historian. The tokens constituted a vital link between the industrialists and the local communities in which they operated and also they served. It required a set of most unusual circumstances for them to exist. These in turn allowed the countermark coins to flourish. It required war. It required inventions. It required raw materials. It required men of vision. It required great markets, and it required large labor forces. But most of all, and truly most bizarrely, it required the inability of the Royal Mint to coin silver. Upon such small matters can history be made. Thank you very much.
All righty, thank you.
Okay, Leanne, thank you.
Do you want to do a quick Q&A at the end? We do have a few questions that have come in.
Oh, okay, certainly, I'll try.
All right, if you could go ahead and click the red button at the top of your screen that says stop share. We'll get that closed down. All right.
Done that, right.
And we do have multiple compliments in the Q&A telling you that it was an excellent presentation. So just wanted to pass those along. Let's see. How are these stamps applied? By hand or using a machine?
Very interesting question. I would say that majority are by hand, but there is very few records, contemporary records known. 2 have been found, and I discovered some in Glasgow University Business Archives. And some of the records that I discovered there for the production of the Thistle Bank, which we saw, referred to a machine for countermarking dollars. And the Thistle Bank was charged £1.11 and sixpence for that machine. Now, it must have been very basic, and I think the only reason it was used was to ensure that the undercoin, the reverse of the coin, the die for the thistle, ensured that if it was a 4 and 9 value, it always pointed to 9 o'clock. And if it was another value, it pointed to 12 o'clock. And I think that's the reason for the machine. So I would say that majority were done by hand, by smiths.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All righty. Let's see. Have you published any articles on this topic?
Many. Probably there is one. Now, I've got a note here somewhere that there is a site called Academia. If anyone logs on to Academia and puts my name, Eric C. Hodge, they should come up with about 20 articles. And if they look through those, they might find something of interest. But I'm always available. If anyone wants to contact me through the NNP, I'd be only too pleased to communicate with anyone who's interested.
Yeah, so if you do want to contact him, you can just send in something through the Contact Us form on the symposium website, and we'll forward it along. So that'll
Thank
work.
you. Okay.
Let's see. We do have another kind of related comment in here asking if the text of this presentation will be made available. The recording of it will be made available. It'll be up on the NNP within 2 weeks, so by about April 4th. And we will send out an email to all the attendees when those recordings are up. So you will be able to come back and look through it. If you would like
I've read, as you probably realize, I've read the text. If anyone wants a copy of that, it's not a problem for me to email them a copy.
All right, so again, just use that Contact Us form and we'll pass the request along.
Okay.
Let's see, how much do the surviving examples tend to sell for, and where can they be found for sale?
Well, auction houses, obviously, you've got to search. They do come up in America as much as the UK. I think a Lanark Mills 5 shillings, which is the most common, probably sells at the moment for £600 or £700 sterling. I don't know what that is in US dollars, but I'm sure it could be worked out. The very rare ones, probably the most, well, they can be £10,000 for some of them, but it fluctuates. But they're not cheap, but they hold their value because there is a limited number, obviously.
Right, a very limited number based on the statistics that we have.
For good reasons.
Yeah. Let's see, for the landmark mills issues, have dies linked the outer ring punches to the half dollars?
The half dollars. Yes, the half dollars in the Lanark Mills 2 and 6 are not half dollars. In fact, they're on French half écus. I didn't mention that, but the 2 and 6 are on French half écus. The ring die, as if I recall rightly, is a star stop. So there are links on that. I'm not quite clear what the question refers, but if that helps.
Mm-hmm. If that person would like to clarify that question, you can send another one in with a little more
Absolutely.
details.
Those are very, very rare. There's only a few known of both those.
All right, this one has multiple questions in it, so I'm going to start with the first two and see where we go. Is there any study on the types of privy marks? Have they been catalogued? Yes,
I've done an article on that. So again, if anyone's really interested, I can send them that article. And that's a start. So yes, as much as possible, I've done some work on that.
So what are the challenges in such an attempt?
For privy marks?
Yes, that was part of the same question, sorry.
Yeah, the main challenge for the privy marks is that it's very difficult to know what's a privy mark without having more than one example. In fact, it's impossible without more than one example. With more than one example, the more examples you have, the more chance you have got. But there's no contemporary records being found for privy marks. So that's why it's a good area to research, because no one can argue against you. You can put forward a view that this is a possible privy mark, and it's very difficult to disprove it at the moment. But it's a very interesting area, and there is certainly no question that majority of the issuers had some idea that there were counterfeits around.
Mm-hmm.
And Thistlebank is a good one because there are known Thistlebank counterfeits, and you can see how accurate they were. So privy marks is a very interesting subject, certainly.
Mm-hmm. So when you mentioned false or counterfeits, do you mean they were done recently or very long ago, or even back in the day when the genuine ones were made?
Well, there's two types of counterfeits broadly. There's contemporary counterfeits, and those you can find that there are contemporary counterfeits through newspaper records which refer to them. So that there's those type, and then there's more modern ones, and there are known counterfeiters in the UK around about the period 1920. But there are more current ones, and I've done an article on that too, coming from Southeast Asia or even from mainland Spain. They're very poor, and they're done 99% of the time on very strange host coins. So I think the chances of 99% of all genuine merchant countermarked dollars are on 8 reals, other than the 5 francs we mentioned for the Dial farm. So anything that's not on an 8 real, you assume is false until it's proved otherwise.
Let's see. You mentioned 76 main types, but said something like 6 of them are counterfeit. Can you please elaborate on what you meant? Why are counterfeits being counted along with genuine?
Well, if you get hold of Harry Manville's book, he includes some of those in his book. And we don't know definitely that they're counterfeits. That's the thing, because the contemporary records just don't exist. But it's a good chance that they are counterfeit. So we say that there's 6 believed, because I think Harry had 6 in his book. We perhaps now believe that there's probably another couple more, but it's very difficult to be sure. But we include the counterfeits because anyone can be wrong. And if someone could prove that they weren't counterfeit. In fact, the Roths Mills without the reverse privy mark were believed genuine at one time. It was only because of all the privy marks that we thought these others can't be genuine. Again, I've done an extensive article on that, and all the arguments 2 and 4 are in that article. And anyone who's interested to read it and argue with me, come forward with other suggestions. I'd love it. I would love it. I mean, the old argument, there's only 2 people interested in this, me and somebody else. I write the articles and he reads them. So the more the merrier.
Okay, we do have a follow-up for the one about the $half from earlier that was a little unclear. It says, I meant linking the outer ring of the 2/6 to the dollar outer ring.
Ah, interesting. Yes, I believe they are the same, but I haven't done that study, and I don't know if anyone has. So there's something that they could do. And the study is all on photographs. Because it's rare to have the coins, and the photographic things you can get nowadays are fantastic. You can see more on the photographs than you can on the coins. So that's an interesting one. I believe they are. The star stops that are on the half acres, the 2 and 6, I believe they are the same that are on the other issues we talked about, the 4 and 6 values. But that's an interesting one. That's something I'll look at when I'm finished with this.
Got plenty more research to be done.
Exactly. Yes. Brilliant. Thank you.
All right. And that puts us at right about 2 o'clock. So I think we're going to wrap it up there.
Well, thank you, Leanna.
Thank you. Are there any closing remarks that you would like to add before we hop off?
No. I genuinely believe that Eric Newman was a wonderful man. And thanks to him, we're able to do this.
Oh, yes.
So that's all I could finish with. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And for everyone watching, let's see, who is up next? We have Howard Engel up next. He is from Canada and will be speaking about a Canadian personality from numismatics. So you're welcome to hop over in that one. Otherwise, thank you for joining us. And thank you so much, Eric. That was a very fascinating presentation. I learned a lot about something I had never heard of before today. So very interesting.
Thank you, Leanna. Shall I press leave now?
Thank you. Yes, I'm going to end the meeting for everyone, so it'll kick you out in a second.
Thank you.
Bye.